when you crash a car, have you crashed cars before?
Yeah, recently.
Do you know when you're starting to crash, everything generally slows down, and you get to really see, your brain focuses on what's happening, and everything else falls into the foreground, and you're crashing.
Yeah.
You're doing a real play-by-play. Bonneville's like that, and El Mirage is like that because you get so much time in the space. Drag racing is like you let go of the button. If everything's going good, the chute's out. Did you win or lose? It's very fast.
Yeah.
Very fast.
Ideally.
Yeah.
Everything's over almost instantly.
Yeah. No, like I've been in the sixes before, and like the car wasn't the right car for it. So the car, I got to become aware of some of the problems the car had when it happened, but it wasn't really for me. And then, Brett has offered before, we've joked about like, let me make a lap in the Mustang, because his car just sounds like the way that car sounds outside of the car. It's like it's worth him hearing it because it's such a gorgeous sounding pass. But I'm like, man, you can turn that thing down, like give me like a 670 or something, I'll be fine.
Turn it down.
Just turn it down.
Just turn it down for a light 670 pass.
Oh, that thing's so fast.
Well, yeah, I mean, the sounds that it makes at 10,000 RPM with soft and hard lockups, kind of like
well, you got
magic.
I
would call it magic.
It is magic. And working on the JZ for a number of years, and then getting exposed to the Coyote. The Coyote's a pretty big engine. When you have 180 inches and now you've got 300 inches, and I kept telling Job, like, man, this thing's pretty good. He's like, it's too small. Like it's 100 inches too small. And then he started to come around it a little bit. He's like, this thing's pretty good. I go, it's pretty good. So we can make the small engine jokes.
Yeah.
Because his background was, you just get a 400-inch engine. Why would you have anything less than a 400-inch engine?
Yeah, like, do the rules say you can't? No? Well, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's like, as engines increase, the amount of times it will turn and live changes, right? So the big engines, spinning them 10,000, managing the gas flow and all that stuff. Like small engines definitely have their place. The Coyote's probably, I don't think there'll be a better 4-valve V8 that's readily available than the Coyote. The Coyote's really got it.
Yeah, I think there was like a perfect spot with like EPA regulations and like all kinds of like engines being overdeveloped a little bit and then also mass produced, that kind of fell into a perfect spot. Now things are kind of taking a turn towards more gas efficient. They know exactly where the fine line of like you don't need to over engineer it is.
Right.
So they just kind of get lazy, I guess, because you need the OEMs. People like to talk shit about the OEMs, but we need them.
No, there's very few. Like I get to spend some time with a guy named Pete Ardema, and Pete makes engines out of other engines. So he's got a 6-liter NA V12 thing. Sounds like magic. And they've built these, get these old Indy IRL heads, cut them in half, weld them together, stick them on this other block. They're making engines.
Yeah.
The majority of us, like the other day I saw something about engine development. It's like, man, you're using the wrong word. Like you took an engine that the OEM engineered and you're finding the limits as you make mistakes because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking down to them because I am them. I'm the aftermarket guys, right? So we're just doing stuff and figuring out where the lines are. Mm-hmm. But the OEM engineering, like the Coyote guys, you look at the engines that came before the Coyote, like I was working on 4 modular engines. There was nothing modular about them. One set of bearings in one block, another set of bearings in another block. They didn't run very well at all. A lot of parts, a lot of space, and the Coyote just runs. Like when I was primarily a Mustang technician, you had to put a supercharger on a 4-valve to run what a Coyote runs. Just like, that's nutty. That Coyote engine's pretty awesome.
I've heard you talk a lot about harmonics and an engine just kind of humming right. And I've heard you say like, other people we know, like engines just isn't humming right. And you're like, that thing's just going to come apart because you can just
Well,
you can kind of
hear it.
audibly tell.
Yeah,
which is a crazy thing to hear you
Man.
say, is like you can just audibly tell when an engine's like not happy.
There are more advanced people than me with this thing, right? Like, when we were, Job and I were kids, we had, I had a Supra, and there was a dude that was going to tune it up. And Job said, like, man, he said, I'm going to tap your shoulder when it goes sideways. So Job can't see anything. He's in the back seat of the car. And, the thing's got a problem, gets into the problem. Job's like 2 seconds ahead of the dude with the laptop. It just, you get it,
Yeah.
It sounds dumb, but like now I can have a customer call me and it's like, just hold the phone up in the air and run the engine, please. Like, don't put the cell phone under the hood. I can't hear nothing. Like, just like like you're going to make a pass. Okay. Have someone walk up to the fence and just let me listen to it. And you could just tell either they're happy or they're not. There's a window.
Yeah. Like when something's really laboring, I have a good concept of that.
Laboring is a very good term for the conversation because it is laboring.
Yeah.
And it will labor until it breaks or it will run and perform.
Mm-hmm. Well, even, not to put anything against Doug Cook, but when his car first was finished, I was like, man, that thing sounds like it's kind of like sputtering a little.
So there's a lot going on in an engine. And one of the most overlooked things is how the cylinder timing is managed individually at a speed or at a rate of change. And you can get into some situations where what you think you have in a timing map isn't what the engine is actually facing, and the engines will tear up, and people will stand around and they'll scratch their heads. With the Motec, the engines run better, and I know I'm probably going to sound like a dumb redneck for saying it, but when you really get close to them and you really start to understand engines, and then you understand what they want and what they don't want, the Motec stuff is just, it's smooth, man. This stuff runs good. Like the other day I was driving my Supra and I turned the traction control off, and now it's just going to be a throttle and a turbo and a boost controller. And I did this like second gear, smell the smoke in the car, just rolling burnout. And it's just sitting at 8,500, just parked on limiter. And it's just awesome. Well, you can get away with that with a computer with really good limiters. Like, listen to Brett's car stage.
Yeah, like it sounds like it hits like 8 different limiters. It just like does like a different sound, then it drops, then it changes, then it does like...
But listen closely to how smooth it is.
Yeah.
That's the opportunity to create limiters that work like that. Some guys just don't have it. And when you think about the limiters and how intentionally misfiring the engine creates harmonics and problems in the valve train and all this other stuff, like, you don't want to do that.
But some things, so you listen to a car, like say some big block twin turbo car pulls up into the street car class, and you hear it sounding odd. What is your first instinct? Tune or something engine? Like, can you kind of audibly hear some difference there?
Yeah, big engines are tricky.
For you, at least.
If you have a big engine, well, it's simple, right? If you had a 2-cylinder engine, you're missing a cylinder, got it. If you have a big engine, you could have a couple plug wires swapped, and at idle, you're like, So you have to, this goes back to knowing your platform. What are you into? What do you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'll listen to those, some engines don't make a lot of sense to me. The Audi V10 and 5 cylinders, my brain's just like, that's a weird sound, But you got guys that work on them all the time, and they're probably really in tune with them, So I think that it's just familiarization. You're going to go through a familiarization period.
Yeah, I've gotten to spend a lot of time talking to Hefner, and his knowledge on that V10 stuff is very next level. He can pinpoint issues. I think I watched him walk around the pits at one race where there was a bunch of V10s, and he pinpointed everybody's issue.
Yeah.
And just kept walking.
No, he's
Like, oh, okay.
that dude is a treasure. He's a really good dude.
It's cool seeing like that kind of knowledge on like certain platforms and just watching even watching you and Job mess with, Brett's tune and like seeing precision, if you could call it that. You probably
No, it's
wouldn't,
real. Like, my buddy called me last year and I said, "What's going on down there?" He goes, "Man, I don't know how they're doing it, but they've got these Audi V10s and they're blowing them up like they're DSMs. Like, how can they afford to recycle this much stuff?" And it's just a bunch of guys that are in it for the fast money. Like you had guys that they're into one platform and the money changes and they get into the next platform. They follow the money. They got businesses to run.
Yeah.
So,
they're always the best at that platform too. They're the best in the country.
Eventually,
at our platform,
maybe. But the V10 money and market is pretty crazy. Like Jason talks me through the operation of those cars. I don't want nothing to do with it. I don't care if I could buy a helicopter at the end of the day. I don't care. I have no interest in getting into that level of complexity. I would like to live my days out with what I know, and I think I kind of know enough. So I just want to stay on this. I don't want to own one of those cars. If you gave me one, I would sell it and buy, 60 Caddy or something.
Well, I rode in the silver one you guys put together.
Yeah.
Had an AMS kit on it, I think, and that's even funny to think, like kits and plug and play and.
Well, so there's the line. If you buy one of those cars because you want one and you want to turbo it, okay, go ahead. But just have 1,000 horsepower.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's like a GTR. 1,000 horsepower, it's awesome. 2,000 horsepower, you're going to be working. A Supra, 1,000 horsepower Supra is a pretty easy car to have. The thing will live pretty well. If you have a competent team around the vehicle, 1,000 horsepower car, no problem.
Yeah.
But you have a 1,500 horsepower Supra, you're going to have to work.
Yeah, like places like, Real Street and like Induction could put you together 1,000 horsepower Supra without even thinking about it.
Sure, but you have to.
You just spend the money.
The internet told everybody 1,000 wasn't enough, and most of us believed it.
1,000 rear-wheel drive on the street is plenty.
Oh, my car won't take 1,000 until 90 miles an hour on a 18-inch tire. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's fast enough. You know what I mean? When it was 1,500 horsepower, it wasn't more fun. I could only use it on concrete, and it was it was really riding. To the point where man, I could crash this thing. I'm it's a little too much.
So on that deal, what, I don't know how to word this. What turbo does it have, and have you thought about changing it because now they've become so good at smaller sizes?
Yes.
So you don't quite need as much?
Yes.
You don't need an 86 millimeter turbo on your street
No.
Supra anymore.
No, I will be guilty of being a precision guy for however long I'm in this game. And right now I have a 7175 and a 7685 next gen. And the car had an 80 on it for a while, and I move around a little bit. The 7175 on my engine right now, I have a 96 millimeter crank and VVTi. It's lit at 4,000 RPM.
Yeah.
I can't get it without closing the throttle. I can't get it dumb enough to manage second on worn asphalt. And then the 7685, it has much more personality, more of a traditional Supra turbo personality. But you got 76 millimeter turbos that'll, you even at just a 1-to-1 pressure ratio, they put out a lot of power. The next gen stuff is pretty cool, and it's always been. It seems like it's always been this way, where there are the ringers. Like a 6466, you're not going to beat a 6466. That turbo and that brand, that's magic. But you can go to another brand and you may find a different 69 millimeter that runs better. But a 7675, you just by precision, that's the one. They got it like that.
I've heard Victor say for a street Supra, he's just do the 64 and you'll be so happy. It's so good.
It is. That's wisdom speaking. Victor's
Yeah.
been in it for a long time, you know?
Like he's not trying to sell every customer an 86 for their street car. Like
Yeah.
I have an 86 on my race car next gen, and we just switched to that recently. But I wouldn't put that on my street car because if you go drive it on the street, you'll have to be flooring it for
Yeah.
a mile before it's finally lit.
Well, if you have,
Maybe 'cause it's never been tuned for that.
a TH400, I think one of the worst, and I hope that I don't have to get yelled at for this, but I think one of the worst is like, you got a TH400 and an 80-something millimeter and you're getting coffee in your Supra. It's miserable. It's miserable. That's a miserable ride. That thing can't move the car. It doesn't have enough power.
Yeah.
You know, it needs more forward gears, you know, and most of the time that comes in the form of a manual.
Yeah, I would definitely see that. I'm not really one of those guys that's like, oh, I drive my street car all the time. I kind of make fun of that because I'm like, do you really prefer to drive your caged street car, race car more than like just a regular ass truck or something?
And I'm really glad I never put a bar in my Supra. When I was racing half mile stuff with it, it was dumb and I could have been hurt. But I didn't put a bar in it then because I'm like, this car's not going to stay this way.
Yeah.
Like I'll just have this car and, you know, like the other day my kid got in and fired up, pulled out of the garage. I said, you ready for that? She goes, I think I'm ready. I go, maybe. You know, but I can't. I'll just close the throttle on it and let her drive it.
Well,
it's
the
a
sadness
lot of car.
of cutting that dash would be hard to swallow just in itself.
Oh, dude, it's an old car. It took me 4 dashboards to get that dashboard. Order them from Japan. They show up. They're wrecked. Order another one. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to go through that. Yeah, that thing's fine the way it is.
Guys, thank you for tuning in to the Bogetti Clips YouTube channel. For the full podcast, check us out on Bogetti Studios YouTube and all your audio platforms. Also, hit that subscribe button to not miss out on any of the new Bogetti clips coming up.